Hello and welcome everyone to today's session. We're going to jump right in and get started. I'm really pleased to welcome our speaker here today.
Thank you so much, Sarah. My name is Ashleigh Anderson. My pronouns are she and her. I'm the head of global talent acquisition at Credit Karma. I've actually been in the tech world since my first job as a university recruiter at Microsoft back in the 90s, so I'm dating myself. The startup bug bit me in 2001, and over the last 20 years, I've been a part of multiple acquisitions and IPOs, and of course, like a lot of us tech junkies, a couple of bombs. The tech world is definitely in my blood. My mom was a computer programmer back in the 70s and 80s when women weren't usually in those jobs. I've been at Credit Karma for 3 years now, and up until COVID, I split my time in between San Francisco and Charlotte, North Carolina. If you've never heard of Credit Karma, we are building a full-scale financial platform to champion financial progress by helping our 110 plus million members improve their credit, pay off debt, and plan for the future. Really democratize financial information. We have offices in Oakland, Charlotte, LA, and London, and are around 1,300 employees right now, with upwards of 75% of those being highly technical roles. So software engineers, data scientists, product development, and design. And despite being in business for 14 years, we still very much operate like a tech startup. As I said, I joined a little over 3 years ago in the summer of 2018, and I inherited an existing team that had never been led by a chief people officer until a few months before I arrived. And because of that, they were working like an internal agency. So there were two teams operating without one consistent process or voice to the business. The size of the recruiting team was too small for the ask from the business, and they were spending a lot of money with external agencies to try and keep up. They weren't using data, didn't know their true offer acceptance rate. So the business was making decisions that should have been talent-led strategies. And some teams were even using recruiting just as a scheduling service, excluding them from most of the process. Because the recruiting team never had the data to prove they were understaffed, the business was doing a lot of their own hiring. There wasn't a way to control candidate experience, as well as messaging our value proposition and really understanding what was important to the candidate and driving them to look for a new opportunity. At the end of the day, all of this combined resulted in a critical function of the business being understaffed and ineffectively utilized. Now, turning a ship like this is never easy because of that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And with data, the business had no way of seeing things could be better. So in my first 60 days, I interviewed a lot of people, leaders in the business, members of the recruiting team, and people in the broader talent organization to find out what was working, what wasn't, and who needed to be shown data to get buy-in on the changes that needed to be made. Ultimately, I needed to show leadership that things could be better and that we had most of what we needed already in the building. At the end of my first 3 months, we restructured the recruiting leadership team and got to work on making some change. Over the next few months, we created a cradle to grave process that all teams followed. We worked with business leaders on requisition prioritization that mapped to their product roadmaps, stopped using external agencies, and created a centralized operations team that was led by one person who was given ownership of all systems and tools and who ensured data integrity. All of these changes were good first steps, and that led to us having data to make decisions and gaining trust from the business and their belief and buy-in on future change. 2019 was a great year, and we delivered on the ask from the business, so things were looking good. Then March 2020 happened, and as we all know, the whole world changed. Last spring and summer, on the daily, I would look at LinkedIn and see entire recruiting teams being laid off. It didn't matter if the company was 100 people or 10,000 people. As you all know, it was a really scary time to be a recruiter, and regardless of the industry, because it just felt like hiring came to a screeching halt all over the US and the world. For those of you that do know me, you know that I'm a mama bear about my team, and I was incredibly worried about the security of their jobs and of mine as well. Looking back now, since I chose to work for a company on a mission to help millions of people that is founded and led by a leadership team that shows empathy and helpfulness for two of the company's 4 values, I should have known I had nothing to worry about. Ken Lin, our CEO, has always had the mindset that if you're doing the right things for people and your customers, then success will follow. Ultimately, Ken and the rest of the executive team once again chose to prioritize people over profit. And they asked me to find 30 people on the recruiting team and nearly 40 other folks on other teams new roles at Credit Karma. So I spent several weeks working with leaders across the company to find roles that would be a good fit based on the previous experience that person had and their transferable skills. We matched folks into roles like technical project manager, software test engineer, growth marketing manager, and product researcher. So really all over the company. I was so thankful for the opportunity to find them roles that would allow them to keep their job at Credit Karma. And at the same time, it was like driving a Ferrari into a chop shop and watching it be torn apart. At that time, it was really hard to see that any good could have come out of that moment. But ultimately, it allowed us time to rethink again how we were structured, what technology and tools we were using, and how we were partnered with the business. A small group of us that continued to focus on recruiting during that time, we called ourselves the little engine that could. We spent the next 6 months taking a critical look at how we operated and the tools we used in our jobs. It was during this time that it became clear that we needed to hit the reset button again on the way we were working. We identified that there was a lot of work to do, and we needed an enterprise level applicant tracking system, data insights built by blending data from our applicant tracking system and all HRIS systems, a structured interviewing practice to help combat hiring bias, a universal hiring process that quickly scaled our ability to bring on critical technical talent, tools to help us do better research and discovery on talent pools to uncover and attract more passive talent, better connectivity and communication with our partner teams that were involved in hiring and onboarding, a capacity planning model and a company-wide headcount prioritization process, and a focus on training and development for our team and for the business as it related to hiring. Now that is a lengthy list, and it was a lot to scope out, and it was a lot to implement. I'm happy to say that we were able to build and roll out almost all of those things, or at least kick off those projects over the last year, all while also rebuilding the recruiting team. The cool thing was that when hiring picked up in October, a lot of folks that I had redeployed into different parts of the business came back. There were a handful that stayed in their new roles, and I really celebrated those success stories. I felt good about my matchmaking capabilities as a recruiter. Looking at the team today, it's almost as if we've been able to build a team from the ground up. And actually, that's usually only an opportunity you get to do at an early stage startup. That's kind of unheard of to get to do it at a well-known, mission-driven tech unicorn with 110 million members. So now I want to walk you through how we restructured the team. All of these roles you've seen at other TA organizations. There's really not too much innovation in the individual job descriptions. I think the difference is how we stitch the work together, how we align resources and the responsibilities to really help us scale faster. We were able to place bets on a different org formation and elevate high-performing folks into roles with a broader scope and bigger teams. We consolidated all of the G&A hiring, so marketing, finance, ops, legal, really anything support related, under one recruiting leader who already owned the international hiring, leadership recruiting, internal mobility, and talent brand. She grew up doing tech recruiting and was early at both Google and Facebook. So her approach to hiring has always been super consultative and based on data and research she's done in the market. This gave her an opportunity to really change the way we worked with the business for our non-tech roles. Now on the non-tech side, we consolidated all of our product, engineering, security, design, and analytics hiring under two managers who I like to call the dream team. They've worked together in the past and are like the yin and yang. They are very different, have different styles, approaches, and perspectives, and together they do amazing things with their teams. During the months where hiring had all but stopped, they worked with engineering leadership to build out our structured interview practice and the universal hiring program. Now with structured interviewing, our interviewers use standardized topic areas and highly vetted quality questions to assess a candidate's strengths. The interview panel uses a rubric in the roundtable that aligns our career framework for engineering And through the feedback discussion, candidates are leveled based on the complexity of their responses to the assigned focus areas, and that reduces subjectivity. This ensures the quality of engineering hires across the entire organization. It also increases fungibility across teams, leading to easier internal mobility, increases diverse perspectives, and provides a better candidate experience. Ultimately, all of this structure helps to limit subjectivity and unconscious bias. Now, additionally, the team worked with engineering leadership to build what is called universal hiring. That's for certain engineering roles that we hire for consistently. Not to be confused with evergreen rec recruiting, which I'm sure many of you do. This is more focused on being a way to scale teams quickly while also making sure any one team isn't overloaded with interviews. We group similar roles that are hired across multiple teams and have someone from each hiring team represented on that structured interview panel. After we decide to make an offer, we align that new hire with the team who matches best for skills, interests, and seniority level. All of this combined alleviates interviewer fatigue, increases the ease of internal mobility in the future, and limits bias in our process. Another investment we decided to double down on was in our university recruiting program with both new grads and interns. We expanded the UR team and were deliberate about focusing on historically excluded and underrepresented people to be a part of our intern and recent graduate cohorts. We also expanded the school set we recruited from and built our strategy around our office locations with local universities that had great technical talent. We utilized structured interviewing for our new grad and our intern interviews, and we're super happy with our results. Our intern class, that is 80% software engineering and technical product manager roles, consisted of 43% women and 14% Black or Latinx students. And with our push on campus to hire new grads who hadn't interned with us before, our external new grad class identified as 57% women and 43% Black or Latinx. So we restructured the way we're aligned with the business, with these three teams owning the relationship with our hiring leaders. But it was clear that while we already had an operations team, we were missing an owner that would tie together all of our work, not just in talent, but to also build bridges with our partners in finance, IT, and operations to help us scale faster and be better. As we started to build out the vision for this team, we knew the core responsibility of the function would be to build and deliver connectivity that allows teams to accelerate hiring. The analogy that kept coming up was this role, this team, they're going to be the new air traffic controller of talent, really ensuring that all teams involved in hiring and onboarding, so not just recruiting, but talent operations, IT, the HRBPs, finance, were all aligned and executing seamlessly. This team was going to enable everyone involved to be better by providing guidance on direction, optimizing on-time performance, facilitating clear communications, measuring critical indicators, and preventing disasters from happening. And that's why we decided to call it talent enablement. As we started to scope the charter out, it was clear that the enablements team primary's responsibility was going to be to help get us to the next level, really empower the change that we saw we needed when we put a critical eye on our own process. The key here was to be critical of what we had developed less than 2 years back, knowing that while things were working well, we could always get better. Now, as I said, while most of the individual roles under this umbrella aren't new to a TA team, I think aligning these resources in this unique way has been the most impactful change we've made to this restructure. Okay, I know at this point you're like, what does talent enablement do and what are they responsible for delivering? Because obviously that's important. So some of you might be at companies that have an enablement function within sales. Sales enablement has been increasing in prominence over the past handful of years because of the value it's brought to bridging various disciplines together. So you can think of talent enablement in a similar way. It's the key enabler to the broader TA function. Now, we broke the work down into 6 big buckets: dashboards, metrics, and modeling, connectivity between partner teams, capacity planning and headcount prioritization, talent research and delivery, program and project alignment, and training, development, and coaching. So now I want to go through some of the specific deliverables that this team is responsible for within these categories. We look at this as an ever-evolving function. And so some of the things I'm going to walk you through have been implemented already, and some have just been kicked off, and eventually will continue to add to this list. Now, first things first, as I mentioned before, data is the key driver behind all of our decisions at Credit Karma, and recruiting is no different. Enablement is responsible for blending and serving up data from the ATS and all HRIS tools. At present count, we have built over 50 self-service dashboards that our team and specific stakeholders on our partner teams have access to. We use this data to inform every decision we make. We use it to make recommendations on strategy from hiring managers all the way to the executive team. This really is critical to the success of future product development. If our leaders don't understand our hiring modeling, it's impossible to build accurate product roadmaps. It's been really cool to see our partners in the business nerd out on the data we can provide them. And because our senior leaders have access to that information anytime they want it, it's cut down on the number of pings our recruiters get looking for updates or information. Now, the next piece of work for enablement is optimizing connectivity with our partner teams. Now, when our chief people officer started at Credit Karma, there had never been a formal head of HR who had a seat at the executive leadership table. So the teams within the people team weren't always in sync with the same information. For instance, there wasn't any intentional communication plan or process between the HR business team and the recruiting team. So there was a lot of this go ask mom if dad says no from the business. Our head of talent enablement, who has also been an HRBP, I call him the HRBP whisperer, set up a bridge to talk through issues and opportunities for our team to come to the business as one voice so we could cut down on that behavior. Of course, there are one-on-one meetings between recruiters and HRBPs who work together with leaders, but this bridge brings out themes and overarching issues that can be worked through and solved, and then implemented across all the business lines. Because we have this tight connectivity, we're also able to understand organizational design and development better, and then translate those needs into talent attraction and assessment strategies. Now, some of the dashboards that I referenced were built to ensure our connection to other teams and to make sure that connection was real time. Information that is specific to product teams, functional organizations, even changes to start dates or work authorization approvals. Other dashboards are built for partners like IT and operations. For instance, it's super important, especially right now with supply chain issues, to optimize procurement for new hardware for Commernauts. And last but not least, in the connectivity bucket, all of these changes, they need to be communicated out to not only our own recruiters, but the business as well. So change management and comms around talent initiatives are critical to our success. The third category of ownership was building a recruiting capacity plan, as well as a headcount prioritization process for the company to follow. This is some of the most important and strategic work we've done, and it's had a big impact on the business, and it helps set their expectations on our hiring pace. When I started at Credit Karma and had my first meeting with finance, I asked how headcount was calendarized, and they said I could hire everyone tomorrow. Well, that set off some alarm bells for a few reasons, but mainly because that doesn't set expectations well for the business. Even if I overhired my team and we delivered every new hire in that first quarter when headcount was released, there's no way the business could onboard those folks effectively and set them up for success. There's data to prove that out. Organizations with a strong onboarding program can improve new hire retention by 82% and productivity by more than 70%. So to set expectations for finance and the business, we built a capacity model for recruiting that takes into account each recruiter's capacity based on their seniority and tenure, using historical data on how many roles and what types of roles each filled. Then we built a scoring system that gave weighted scores to how hard a specific role is to hire. After combining those, we were able to gauge how many roles our team could handle at any given time, and we then allocated that capacity to each hiring executive based on their percentage of total headcount that had been approved. Now we work with each leader on a weekly basis to kick off new roles as others are hired against. Okay, So research, this is definitely one of my favorite parts of recruiting. Staying on top of innovation in our space is super critical to our success. New powerful systems and tools and market intelligence on candidate pools, these things are the difference maker for a recruiting team. So the way I see it, talent research and delivery is like the nutrition mechanism that continually feeds the company. To separate this out, I want to talk through tools research and delivery and candidate research delivery separately. Our head of enablement and our operations manager do a lot of research into new tools and systems that can help us improve operational efficiency across our teams. Now, over the last month, they've implemented a new ATS, onboarded GEM and a couple of other new tools, and we're in the process of rolling out our totally reimagined career site. And as for market intelligence on candidate pools, we are reinventing what a typical sourcing team does. And GEM is part of that new vision. The team is now called the research team because that's exactly what they're doing. It pains me when folks talk about sourcing as being an entry-level position in recruiting. It's exactly the opposite. Bringing in passive talent is critical to the success of delivering top talent quickly to the business. If you are only utilizing entry-level folks to build passive pipelines, there is a giant opportunity missed. 3 of the best researchers I know who only want to do sourcing each have more than 20 years of experience. So if recruiters aren't creating pipelines with those targeted passive candidates, they're just overpaid paper pushers. Now, like most teams, it always feels like there are a million balls in the air. And by that, I mean tons of programs and projects in flight at different stages. The enablement team keeps all of these working teams connected, making sure that the right folks are involved, voicing their point of view, and that deadlines are being met. This could be anything from our partnership with our DEI team on structured interviewing to the internal mobility work where we partner with the HRBP team to ensure that there are opportunities for Karmanauts to take on new roles. Projects like our new ATS rollout and the company-wide headcount prioritization process involve people from talent, IT, security, engineering, finance, and operations. So with that many teams and that many people involved, it's really important to have one owner to keep the train on the track and on time. Now, last here, but definitely at the top of everyone's mind is training, development, and coaching. Enablement works to deliver team-based learning opportunities on a weekly basis, built around real situations that bubble up with candidates or in the business. These are sessions where the full team comes together in an interactive format to talk through strategies on topics ranging from leveling candidates during the interview process to long-term prospect relationship building, and everyone's favorite topic, tough closes. Additionally, every year, Credit Karma gives each of us $5,000 in time off for professional development. And we want to make sure that our team is utilizing that well. So the enablement team will work with the recruiting leadership team to build individual development plans for recruiters. And of course, it's not just recruiting that needs to hone those hiring skills. As we all know, all of our employees need to be trained on how to be a great interviewer, how to use our systems, and how to be a good hiring manager. So the enablement team builds and delivers training to make all of us better. My favorite and last change as it relates to development is coaching. Our head of enablement has literally done every people-related job there is. And sometimes it's better for folks to unpack problems or solutions with people or someone who is not their direct manager. And he is there for that. So yeah, that's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility. And because of that, it's an incredibly impactful team to work on. If you think about it, as recruiters, most of us talk about how awesome it is to help someone find their next perfect job. Imagine doing this work, knowing that you are helping your company scale faster and you're helping your peers get better. This work really is the foundation of the success for recruiting. Now, implementing the enablement model could look a million different ways depending on the size of your company and the recruiting team, the funding your team receives, and the buy-in you get from senior leadership. But at Credit Karma, we've broken it down into 3 core components: operations, research, and data analytics. So under operations, we have interview scheduling and logistics with the coordination team. They make sure everything is running smoothly and effectively. We also have process and tools. And so this is everything from working on onboarding, tools implementation and maintenance, and training. all there is to help to cut down on administrative heads of our jobs. Now, within the research component, we have tools and process innovation discovery, as well as the research recruiting team that is constantly feeding our team's great talent. And the last component is the data analytics and insights, there to establish a TA analytics foundation that will provide mission-critical insights to stakeholders throughout the business. So now that I've told you what this team owns, I'll give you a broad overview of the job titles we've mapped to these deliverables. Of course, at the helm is our head of talent enablement, who is a master at multitasking and an incredible coach. Hiring a very senior person with a broad amount of experience was paramount to the success of this new team, the way that we set it up. And without such a varied and seasoned background, it would have been impossible to build a bridge with so many teams and stakeholders. Our manager of operations and research owns all of our systems and tools, as well as reinventing this team of research recruiting. Our ops lead reports into him, and she owns the coordination team. Now, our ops manager historically has been a staff level recruiter on our team who had interest in operations and had done some of that work at previous startups. So it was something he raised his hand for. The best part is that his lens for ops is with a recruiter's point of view. And the data analyst role that reports into our head of enablement is responsible for our reporting metrics, determining what those are and how we measure them. In addition to that, recommending the best ways to share that information to the broader organization. As I said, enablement can look a million different ways based on the size of your company and their investment in recruiting. Fully staffed, we have a team of more than 40 within recruiting. So I hope that gives you a vision of how much of an investment we put into enablement. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to jump on and listen. If you have any questions about enablement, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Sarah?
Ashleigh, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us today. That was really, really amazing. Thank you.